Once upon a time in a land far away, there lived a little girl named Ida, pronounced with a distinctive click sound at the beginning of her name. Orphaned at the tender age of 4, Ida found herself alone in the world. By the time she turned 8, she had become homeless, living with her uncle and aunt, the Millers. In the year 1843, there were few laws to protect children, allowing her guardians to impose harsh conditions upon her. Uncle Miller and Aunt Miller were far from kind. The agreement stipulated that they must provide her with 3 meals a day, a safe place to sleep and water, but they consistently broke their promise. Ida diligently completed her chores, spoke only when necessary, and made herself as small and unobtrusive as possible, all in hopes of avoiding their wrath. Yet, despite her efforts, she often received the scraps left behind after her aunt and uncle, along with their children, had eaten. The meager portions she was fed hardly sufficed to fill her stomach. In an act of cruelty, they gave her sleeping space to the family goat, forcing Ida to curl up in the cramped goat pen, wrapped in a tattered blanket. Confused by her punishment, she never dared to cry out, even when hunger gnawed at her insides night after night. On the 3rd night of being banished to the outdoors, desperation set in. Ida resolved to run away, but she knew she had to prepare first. Carefully, she saved scraps of food from the meals she cooked, stashing away bits of salt pork, a nearly half-eaten loaf of bread, and some tomatoes, potatoes, and turnip seeds. She also retrieved her father's old tools from the shed and her mother's cherished journal, filled with the names of plants and their medicinal properties. Once her supplies were gathered, she meticulously planned her escape. She decided to leave the following night, an hour after the lanterns flickered out, ensuring that no one would hear her departure. As the anticipated night approached, anxiety bubbled within her. She had no idea where she would go or how she would find work at such a young age. Finally, the lanterns extinguished and the house fell silent. Ida counted the minutes, her hunger gnawing at her resolve. After what felt like an eternity, 1 hour and 4 minutes, she quietly grabbed her flour sack, filled with her meager belongings, and slipped out of the goat pen. With a silent prayer, she walked through the gate and down the dirt road toward the woods that loomed in the distance. After an hour of trudging through the dark, she grew thirsty and spotted a glimmering creek. She hurried toward it, kneeling by the water's edge. The liquid was clean, clear, and refreshingly sweet, quenching her thirst. Realizing she needed to stay near water, she followed the creek deeper into the woods until she discovered a secluded cove sheltered by an overhanging rock. Remembering her uncle's lesson on fire-making, she set to work. Lacking flint, Ida used a flat piece of dry bark and a small round stick, rubbing them together until wisps of smoke began to rise. Gently blowing on the embers, she added dry weeds and watched as they caught fire, growing into flames. Carefully, she placed the fire within a circle of stones, adding larger sticks as the flames danced higher. With her knees pulled up to her chest, Ida sat close to the warmth of the fire. Thoughts of her parents swirled in her mind, were they kind or cruel? As exhaustion overtook her, she lay down on the warm stones of the cove, drifting into a restless sleep. When she awoke, the fire had dwindled to glowing embers. She found a container to collect water from the creek, pouring it over the remnants of her fire before deciding it was time to move on, deeper into the woods. After 2 more days of wandering, Ida stumbled upon an abandoned cabin. The roof sagged on one side, and one of the 2 windows was shattered. Cautiously, she approached the door, her heart racing with a mix of hope and fear as she stepped over the threshold into the unknown. Unsure of whether she should enter, she first circled the small cabin, her heart racing with anticipation. The cabin, rustic and weathered, held her flour sack, which she gently set down. She stepped onto a sturdy wooden box positioned beneath one of the windows, peering cautiously inside. With deliberate slowness, she glanced around, uncertain if someone, or something, was lurking within. The interior revealed a single room with a modest loft above for sleeping. Its simplicity felt both inviting and ominous. She made her way to the front and tried the door, discovering it wasn't locked. As she turned the knob and pushed the door open, it creaked loudly, echoing in the stillness. Stepping inside, she felt the cool air wrap around her and soon stood in the heart of the cabin. Her gaze swept across the space, landing on the hearth where remnants of firewood remained, an indication that someone had been here recently. She approached the table and noticed a water pump nearby, a sign of a well outside. With a sense of hope, she gripped the pump handle. The first attempt yielded nothing, but on the second try, a rumble filled the air. As she pumped again, a thick brown sludge emerged, followed by a more watery, light brown stream. After several pumps, the water began to clear, transforming into a refreshing liquid. Her eyes wandered to a wood-burning stove, a cast iron pan resting on top. Various pots and pans hung above, their surfaces gleaming in the soft light. She looked up and saw shelves stocked with jars labeled with their contents: cabbage, potatoes, turnips, and preserves. Suddenly, a sound interrupted her thoughts, the unmistakable sound of hooves. Just one horse indicating a solitary rider. Her heartbeat quickened, the pulse pounding in her ears. Panic set in as she searched for a place to hide. Her instincts led her to the hearth itself. She squeezed into the narrow space, pressing her back against the cold stone, listening intently. The hoofbeats slowed as the rider dismounted, the crunch of boots on the porch echoing with each deliberate step. The figure paused at the threshold, peering into the cabin, seemingly unaware of her presence. From her concealed vantage point, she could see the dusty floor where her own footprints betrayed her. Covering her mouth with her hand, she pushed herself deeper into the shadows of the hearth. To her shock, the wall shifted suddenly, revealing a hidden passage. As she tumbled through, she found herself in a much larger room, far more spacious than the cabin itself. Confusion washed over her. "Where am I?" she whispered to the empty air. "This can't be part of the cabin, can it?" She heard the rider on the porch again, mounting their horse with a soft click of the saddle. The sound faded as they rode away, leaving her alone once more. Taking a deep breath, she scanned her surroundings and spotted a lantern. She struck a match, igniting it and illuminating the room. The space was filled with provisions. Flour, oats, potatoes, carrots, and strands of cabbage drying from the ceiling. First aid supplies were neatly arranged on a shelf, while jars of churned butter and cow's milk sat in a closed chamber at the back. Curiosity sparked within her as she opened the door to the cold storage room, the chill hitting her like a wave. Everything inside appeared undisturbed, as if the previous occupant had simply stepped out. On a small table, she noticed a ledger, its pages yellowed with age. She settled onto the cool floor, lantern in hand, and opened it, eager to uncover the secrets held within its entries. The old man lifted his gaze, his eyes catching the sight of the cabin's roof, which sagged ominously at one corner. "You're going to need to fix that before the first snow," he said, concern etched across his weathered face. She looked up, anxiety flashing in her eyes. "I know, but I don't know how to fix it, and I don't have any supplies. Besides, I can't even climb up there." He studied her for a moment, recognizing the weight of her predicament. After a brief pause, he nodded. "I'll be back in a couple of days to help you with it." A flicker of worry crossed her face. "You're not going to turn me in?" He turned back to her, his expression softening. "Whatever brought you here is your own business, not mine to judge." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. True to his word, a few days later, he returned with his two older sons in tow, their sturdy frames signaling their readiness to tackle the repairs. The old man, now too frail to climb the roof himself, relied on his sons to do the heavy lifting. "Let's get to work," he instructed, his voice steady. Within half an hour, the men efficiently shored up the sagging roof, their practiced hands moving with precision. "Dad, do you want me to check the rest of the roof?" Jack, the older son, asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Yes," the old man replied, nodding appreciatively. The two brothers climbed up, carefully inspecting the remaining roof. They soon discovered additional spots that required attention and set to work fixing those, too. Meanwhile, the younger son rummaged through their wagon, retrieving a new window. "Let's get this broken one replaced," he said, determination in his voice. He removed the shattered frame with ease and soon had the new window installed, transforming the cabin's interior instantly. A surge of warmth enveloped the space, a stark contrast to the chill that had lingered before. The old man stepped inside the cabin, glancing up to admire the repairs. She noticed the change in the air, a cozy warmth wrapping around her like a blanket. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she ran to him, her thin arms wrapping tightly around his legs, nearly knocking him off balance. He placed his weathered, calloused hand on her head, gently caressing her hair. Words were unnecessary. The unspoken bond was more than enough to convey his support. Just then, his sons walked in, and the sight of the little girl clinging to their father brought smiles to their faces. "Dad, are you ready to head back?" Jack asked. "Yes, son, I'll be right there," he replied, his voice warm with affection. As the two men stepped outside, they offered her a respectful nod, acknowledging the quiet strength she had shown through her struggles. In that moment, she felt a sense of belonging, knowing that, despite her challenges, she was not alone.